We're now joined by Jenny-Brooke Condon, who is professor of law and director of the Equal Justice Clinic at the Seton Law School Center for Social Justice. Professor, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We're taping this right before Thanksgiving 2020, and it will be seen after that. So let me ask you, the term constitutional crisis is often talked about. Let's hope that when this airs in 2021, there's an inauguration on January 20th, there is a President Biden and there's a transition. Should that even be something we're talking about, or is that just an anathema in American democracy?
Well, Steve, I think throughout this period in which the term constitutional crisis has been spoken and questioned, for the last 4 years, I think one of the institutions that has been reassuring throughout that time has been the federal judiciary. And so I think we can put a lot of stock, even during periods of crisis, that the court's commitment to the rule of law, our Constitution as a source of stability and restraints upon all three branches of the federal government is a reason to be reassured that both we've come through a period of a lot of challenges and impeachment, a lot of questions about excesses under the Constitution, but we've come through them. And I think as 2021 starts, we can continue to put faith in our judicial system and the courts to raise many of the most critical challenges facing our country and issues of public importance into the new administration.
But Professor, let me ask you this. I mean, your area of expertise, your research is centered on human rights, immigration, law, prisoners' rights, constitutional law. The Supreme Court, as we speak right now, into 2021, there is a 6-3, quote unquote, conservative majority. So respectfully, my only question is, you talked about moderation. You talked about the courts playing an appropriate role. Justice Alito just spoke out publicly for one of the first times about politics, about political ideology. It's very rare for a justice to do that, or associate justice to do that. Here's my question. Why are you so confident that there will be this equilibrium on a highly conservative, Trump-dominated court?
Well, I have faith in the court to protect our democracy and to ensure that it works as an institution that doesn't produce a constitutional crisis. But do I have a lot of concerns about a 6-3 conservative majority court shutting off access to liberty and access to equal justice for some of the most vulnerable members of our society, and increasing the power that corporations and so many others are often given free rein and under even the current court before we've seen the change to the 6-3 majority. So I am not in any means sanguine about the challenges that we face. I think for social justice advocates like me, one of the realizations is that the court is not the answer to all of our social problems, and we need to build a multifaceted strategy for social change that includes empowering communities, looking to the state courts. New Jersey has a incredibly effective and accomplished and respected state Supreme Court. And so the battle for improving rights is not, we don't put all of our focus on the US Supreme Court. We need to build broader coalitions and movements for change beyond the court.
Well, respectfully, Professor, I'm sorry for interrupting. It is the court of last resort. And when it comes to the issues we're talking about and the most vulnerable populations with a 6-3 majority, conservative majority, if it is the court of last resort on a whole range of sensitive, difficult issues, what is the recourse for other courts? And should they be anticipating that possibility or that prospect of the court of last resort moving in a certain direction? I'm pointing left, but I really mean right. Do other courts adapt or adjust or anticipate? Or do they just administer the law?
Well, I think courts, we have state courts and lower district courts that are called upon to resolve the vast majority of the questions and legal disputes in our legal system. And so yes, the issues that reach the Supreme Court are some of the most contentious and important, but a lot of justice is delivered throughout the system. Should we expect, given the current makeup of the court, that there is going to be a more conservative direction? Of course. And will that mean real damage and pain for a lot of individuals? I believe so. But I think throughout our history, the court has gone through periods of change, and the long-term strategy has to think about if the Democrats are serious about doing something about the lack of equilibrium in the court. I think they should pursue those strategies, but I think advocates like me and individuals need to think more broadly beyond the Supreme Court as a way to improve our country, democracy, and our legal system. Before
I let you go, do you believe that, dare I use the term, packing the court, which Franklin Delano Roosevelt attempted back in the 30s and into the 40s, do you believe that the Democrats, if they pursued that, is a dangerous precedent to set and a dangerous direction for our country? I think we're currently in a potentially dangerous direction given the lack of equilibrium on the court and all of the critical issues that can be decided by the court and all of the, in my view, the rollback of progress that we've seen in the court. So I think we're already in that dangerous moment. Would expansion of the number of justices say 9 to 12, would it help?
Yes, I think it would. I think we all have to recognize that it could create a cycle of retribution by the Republican members of Congress.
And expanding the court.
What's that?
And potentially expanding the court in the next administration or a next administration.
So I think, there are no easy answers, but I think there's some interesting strategies out there that I've seen some proposals about increasing, the age of or setting an age of retirement and adding a small number of justices and having it done in a way that makes sense to provide equilibrium. But I think the real problem here is that the Republicans in Congress have not followed the norms related to the court, and it would be a real tragedy for the Democrats to not credibly consider options to protect the rights of Americans. Professor, compelling conversation. I promise we'll have you back to follow the U.S. Supreme Court and the impact it's having on our citizens and our country. Thank you, Professor. Appreciate it. I'm Steve Adubato. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the CAUCUS Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by HolyName Medical Center, MD Advantage Insurance Company, the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, Valley Bank, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, Operating Engineers, Local 825, Fedway Associates, Inc., IBEW Local 102, Eastern Atlantic States Regional Council of Carpenters, and by these public-spirited organizations, individuals, and associations committed to informing New Jersey citizens about the important issues facing the Garden State, and by Employers Association of New Jersey. Promotional support provided by NJ.com and by Insider NJ.
Data shows that many patients have avoided seeking critical health care in the wake of COVID-19 for fear of contracting the virus. Delaying medical care can have serious consequences, so you should never second guess or ignore your symptoms. At HolyName Medical Center, we have measures in place to prevent infectious disease from spreading. We're clean, we're open, and we're safe for all your healthcare needs.